97.3 Citi FM. Relevant radio, always.
To, let members of the public point at the actions of individuals and putting those actions together as the corruption for an organization because they happen to belong to that organization. That is the problem. When you are talking about MPP or NDC, what is NDC? If they say MPP is corrupt or NDC is corrupt, what are you talking about? Are you talking about people who happen to be members of the party who are perceived to have engaged in certain things? Is that corruption translates into corruption of the organization? Are we talking about the headquarters of the party? Are you talking about individual candidates? And let me tell you, political activity, if we want to talk about campaigns and campaign funding and so on, candidates who are engaged in seeking positions, they end up contributing more than the parties as institutions. You understand? So, for instance, if somebody is contesting elections in Fantiapa, and I'm supposed to be the general secretary, and he has a means of financing his party, his campaign, at the end of the day, I have to report on the sources and of revenue and expenditure of a political party. I have no way to even know how much that person spends in Fantiapa, let alone getting a composite report to present to our auditors for onward submission to the Electoral Commission. So if some of you are thinking that political parties are just, or the perceived corruption you are talking about is an aggregate of the conduct of various candidates and so on, or members of the party throughout, then I'm afraid everybody in Ghana belongs to a political party. And so therefore everything that is done in Ghana can be put on political parties. So we are saying that if you are engaged in a scientific exercise like this, which may end up tarnishing the image of an institution, you should be able to define the institution you are talking about.
We, the General Secretaries of the four parties with representation in Parliament, have come together before you today to refute in its entirety the conclusions of the Corruption Perceptions Index that recently ranked political parties second in Ghana for their perceived levels of corruption. Apparently, the survey for this index was conducted in February 2013, barely 2 months after a lengthy political campaign run by political parties, where politics occupied much of the public space. We want to know whether those who framed the questions for this survey made a clear distinction between political parties as institutions and individuals. We accept that corruption is a problem and that our society continues to suffer its consequences. We accept that greater anti-corruption actions are needed in all public decision-making, including better rules on lobbying and political financing, making public spending and contracting more transparent, and making public bodies more accountable to the people. What we refuse to accept is how corruption in the public sphere makes political parties as institutions corrupt, especially when there is no evidence to show so. The core values of democracy, which underpin the formation and activities of political parties, may be summed up as the right to self-determination. The Ghanaian Constitution and the Political Parties Act 2000, Act 574, provides that every citizen of voting age has the right to participate in political activity intended to influence the composition and policies of the government. Political parties are the vehicles for participation, and elections provide the framework, and the regulations of the Act ensure transparency and accountability in the operations of the political parties. We believe that political parties, the vehicles for such an important exercise that affirm our democratic values and form the bedrock of our nation state, cannot be tarnished in a manner that this index, however inadvertently, sought to do. In the last 50 years, democracy has grown and spread globally to an unparalleled degree, and levels of civil and political freedom are the highest in history. Ironically, even though democracy as a form of government is seen as the most legitimate, what is disturbing is the substantial and growing disaffection with many democratic institutions, especially the political party. Confidence in government is in decline, and citizens are cynical about political parties, most of all politicians. These trends are ominous in their implications for democratic stability. Political parties are the lifeblood of democracy. You can have parties without democracy, but no democracy without political parties. Political parties offer avenues for political participation and significant opportunities for voters to express their needs and concerns, define their aspirations for society, and thereby shape their country's future. The effect of this survey is to compromise public confidence in political parties, thus undermining the entire democratic process. We all surely agree that to sustain democracy, the party system must be permanently and deeply embedded in Ghana, and that no other form of government apart from democracy has any significant legitimacy. We believe that we play an indispensable role in this quest to strengthen democratic governance. Through political parties, elections allow citizens to hold their leaders accountable for their policies and actions, thereby ensuring peace and stability. Through political parties, citizens' local concerns are placed in a national context, and support for important legislation can be obtained. Through political parties, people's needs, interests, choice of leaders, and policies are organized, creating grounds for compromise and helping societies to unite. Through political parties, leaders are trained who will assume critical roles in governing society. And through political parties, the institutions of government are linked to various cultural, religious, economic, and other groups in society. The implications for any induced disaffection with political parties caused in part by this survey is serious, especially as we continue the critical process of entrenching democracy at all levels of society. The resultant distrust and skepticism can result even in undermining the viability of democracy and lead to a desire for a return to authoritarian rule. It feeds into the dangerous, palpably false, and unfortunate perception that politicians are a privileged class, self-serving, and unaccountable. The media feed frenzy on any story to substantiate this perception, leading to a loss of confidence in the system. Perceived corruption caused by alleged or proven breaches of the law by individuals or public officers who happen to be members of political parties does not, by extension, make those parties corrupt. Political parties are separate entities governed by the laws of Ghana in general and the political parties law in particular. We fail to see how alleged perceived corruption of a handful of individuals can be misrepresented in such a way as to taint the administration of our respective organizations. Fellow Ghanaians, political parties are the lifeblood of democracy, and we play an important but very complex and difficult role that is in the final analysis dedicated to the service and advancement of this nation. Thank you.
Yeah, so we will invite the only say in Ghanaian politics, to also make a statement.
I represent the New Patriotic Party, and I've had the benefit of reading beforehand the statement as read to you by our brother Ivor Greenstreet of the CPP. And we are on all fours with the statement as issued, and we fully associate ourselves to the contents as expressed here. We wish to add that we deny that political parties are corrupt as an institution, and we agree that those who conducted this index must come again, because it appears to us that they got the ambit wrong. Sabers have stated that we are satisfied about the contents of this statement, and we believe that it would serve the purpose for which we have met here. We thank you.
The People's National Convention is part and parcel of this process of ensuring that we commit our nation to democracy. And democracy, as has already been expressed, cannot survive without political parties. What the GII report seeks to do is to ensure that confidence in political parties is eroded without any basis. What they sought in their report to do is to say that political parties and political leadership are indeed highly corrupt, and we all know the effects of corruption. Now, if confidence in political parties is eroded, what it simply means is that confidence in democracy is also eroded. And when confidence in democracy is eroded, what it means is that citizens will be looking for an alternative to democracy. Those same institutions that have come to condemn and ensure that this argument is vested probably will not survive in an authoritarian regime. And we think that in conducting their research, you will come painfully to realize that indeed some of us, when we started asking questions as to the basis, they said that during the campaign, motorbikes and bicycles were given. And I asked the question, if you have an organizer to organize and campaign for you, and you give a bicycle so that it will enable the person to move to various communities to ensure that your message is reached and accepted, how can that constitute corruption? And yet, that is the kind of thing that is supposed to undermine the entire institution of the political party. I sit here to say that the PNC is not corrupt. And I'm sure that the NDC General Secretary will tell you the NDC is not corrupt. The CPP will tell you the CPP is not corrupt. And the NPP surely will tell you they are not corrupt. As an institution, we are accountable to the Electoral Commission through the Political Parties Act. And we have always respected the rules of engagement when it comes to our obligation to the Electoral Commission. So it is strange that anybody can make such a report and indeed rank the political party, the institution of the political party, as number 2 in the scale of political corruption or corruption in the country. So we think that it's important first to mature our democracy, and that pronouncements as done by the GII intend to undermine confidence in our democratic institutions, and indeed to ensure that our politics and probably our governance is taken to a different level. Maybe they want to introduce autocracy that we don't know. We think that democracy is the way out, and the institutions must be guided and protected. So the PNC totally support the statement that the other general secretaries have also endorsed. Let me conclude, possibly, that probably this is the first time in the history of our nation that our general secretaries from different political parties have come together. It tells you that when it comes to some issues that affect us all, we can work for the promotion of our nation. Thank you so much.
Yeah, so let's now pause.